everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the first video where I am separating out the manga that I read from the novels that I read, because I feel like the audiences, although they might converge in certain areas, I think for the most part the audiences could be quite different, and I wanted more time to actually be able to talk about the manga that I'm reading and maybe have an area where I can discuss what I've recently acquired or maybe recently got rid of. So this is my first attempt at this video. Unfortunately, for my first attempt at this video, it's also going to be a video with a lot of background noise, potentially. There's a lot of construction going around my apartment, and for some reason there are a lot of helicopters going by today, but I can't really do anything about that, so hopefully they'll just be quiet as I talk. So the main thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that I've recently read the entire series, volumes 1 through 8 of Marmalade Boy, and which is by Wataru Yoshizumi, and it's a manga that was published in between 1992 and 1995. For me, I love reading manga from when I was a kid. So I love 80s manga and I love 90s manga particularly. Those are my favorites. That's where I always go. That's what I always go back to, and it's definitely where I'm much more knowledgeable compared to modern titles and recent releases. It's just, well, it's just the nature of of it all, right? It could be a mix of nostalgia. It could be because I grew up with the art style. I'm more comfortable with the art style. It could be, I don't know, maybe there was a simplicity back then that it doesn't exist now. I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm definitely much more fond of older 80s and 90s manga, and this is just a prime example of 90s manga. So Marmalade Boy, it's a shoujo manga, which means it's a manga designated for female readers, and it was absolutely perfect. It was humorous. I love the art in it. It's just very quite standard but very traditional art, and the panels are actually quite simple. You'll see there's a lot of white space in the background, maybe compared to more modern manga. But you do have these really wonderful full page panel scenes as well, and I just really love it. And the characters are just absolutely fantastic and funny and just everything you could want. Basically, Marmalade Boy is about this girl who finds out on the very first chapter that her parents are getting divorced. But not only are they getting divorced, but basically what happened is they went on a vacation to Hawaii, they met another couple, and basically came back to Japan and decided they were going to switch partners. So what happens is that our main character is now going to live in a house with 4 parents, and she now has a new brother. And her brother basically form a romantic relationship. Although obviously they're not actually brother and sister, they just live under the same house. But they are keeping the secret from their family, and it basically just revolves around that, and the sort of complications that arises from the fact that they have 4 parents, and you're gonna have a standard love triangle as very common in shoujo manga. But what I really liked is just the way this manga explored relationships, and basically relationships that are considered against the rules. There's a student-teacher relationship as well that's featured in this manga that just really makes you think about the idea of untraditional relationships. Obviously brother and sister goes beyond a non-traditional relationship, but this does explore that idea quite well, and it was really fantastic. I really love this. Like I said, there were moments that really made me like do the breathe out really loudly burst of air kind of laughter, which I had to like keep quiet because I was reading this at lunch during work, and I didn't want people to ask me what was going on. But yeah, super recommended. Absolutely love this. Marmalade Boy was just a real big treat, and I'm so happy I read this. Next is a manga I wanted to discuss, and I need to pull up this series. The next manga that I tried reading was the Rose of Versailles. So the Rose of Versailles is again, another shoujo manga, but this time it's a 70s manga. It was created in 1972 and ended in 1973. I don't remember how many volumes it has because I have the version which is basically when a manga gets re-released later on, and it gets released in these shorter, fatter versions. Let me grab an example real quick. So for example, these are the same mangaka. You have Rumiko Takahashi, who you should, I don't know about you, depends on your age probably and your interest, but she's very famous for the manga Ranma 1/2. And this is the standard, this is the original, how the manga comes out originally. And then this is her Maison Ikoku. Maison Ikoku also came out in this edition traditionally, but later on, these manga often get republished in these versions. And they usually have like 1.5, almost 2 volumes in one volume. And they're smaller, fatter, shorter, and the page is a little glossier and a little bit more, it's kind of like collector's editions almost, but still very friendly to read and use and whatnot. But basically, I was reading this version, which comes out in 5 volumes. And what it is, it's a shoujo manga about Marie Antoinette, basically. And Marie Antoinette has this guard called Oscar, and Oscar is also a woman, but she was kind of raised as with more male personality, more male characteristics, male training, which is why she becomes a guard, a royal guard. And it's basically just Marie Antoinette and Oscar going through French society, and obviously Marie Antoinette and the history that goes on with her. And I'm gonna show you, because the thing is that I DNF'd. I decided to stop reading the series after volume 1. It took me 1 week to read volume 1, which typically these thicker volumes are about 300, they're about 350 pages or so, and I didn't even finish volume 1. It took me a week to read 100 pages because I was so bored. I couldn't really get over the art. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, because the thing is I sold immediately the series. So I don't really have it to show to you. So I'm going to just show you via my computer, which is very, cheap YouTube, I guess. But you can see this sort of 1970s art, and you can look it up yourself. But I just couldn't get over the art style. All the characters kind of looked the same to me, so it got kind of confusing to figure out who was who, and what was what. And I hated the interaction between the characters, because it's French society, there's jealousy, there's Marie Antoinette comes to court, and her father-in-law's mistress, who has a lot of power in the court, is very jealous of this new woman who now has a higher ranking than her, even though she's only like 12 years old basically, or something of the sort, 15 or whatever it was. Like I said, it took me a week to read 100 pages, and I just could not care for the details. I was just not having it. So like I said, I sold the series because I just did not care for it. But I was really interested in it. I really wanted to read it because the Rose of Versailles is basically, it's a pivotal moment in shoujo manga. It basically created modern shoujo manga, because shoujo manga used to be like this manga that was really aimed at little girls, and with Rose of Versailles, the genre shifted to being a genre that adults could read, or young adults could read, basically older women and whatnot, because you're really dealing with these heavy romantic relationships. And it just became this pivotal moment in the genre, and I just couldn't get into it. I was just too bored. I really was. And like I said, I couldn't get past the art style, which is, obviously the art style is going to be different. It's manga from the 70s, and the manga art style has definitely changed a lot over the years. Comparing 70s versus 80s versus 90s and now the 2000s, like, it's crazy the difference in the manga style. And that's what really actually makes manga very exciting. but I have to admit I did get stuck on the 70s style. So I did give up on the famous Rose of Versailles, which is unfortunate, but it happens. But I was actually excited though, because that meant I was able to take off immediately 5 books from my TBR pile, which, if you're not aware, my manga TBR is about 400 unread volumes, which is a lot. I know. Manga is one of those things that I definitely buy faster than I read, just because everything looks so tempting and you can get such good prices in Japan, and it's just super tempting. It's just hard. Which, on that note, I, on a whim, went into a Book Off, which is a very famous used bookstore chain in Japan that sells used books. And they're very good about selling manga, and they sell them in these gorgeous sets that are so tempting. And for some reason, it's not even, I didn't want to go home immediately after work, so I decided to roam. And when I roam, I always end up going to Book Off, because I have 2 Book Offs on my way home, which is a lot of temptation. And I just went in without thinking, like really without thinking. I had no intention of going in, but it happened that they had a manga series in a set form that I've been looking for and I've been wanting. And that is the series called Kiseju. And Kiseju, you can see the price I bought it for. Kiseju, if you're not aware, is the manga series Parasyte. Parasyte has gotten a lot of attention recently because the anime came out on Netflix. I don't really watch anime, but I watched Parasyte, although I still have like 2 episodes left because I'm really bad at watching things when it comes to series. I still haven't finished watching Breaking Bad. I still haven't finished watching Squid Game. I still haven't finished watching a lot of series, basically. Basically any series out there I haven't finished. But yeah, Parasyte is a late 80s, early 90s manga series, which is right up my alley. It started in 1988 and finished in 1995. It's by Hitoshi Iwaki. I really watched anime. Like, Parasyte's probably the first anime, and Kimetsu no Yaiba Demon Slayer are the first animes I've watched in maybe 10 years, even more. But I really, really liked Parasyte, and I really wanted to read the manga as soon as possible. But because it's an older manga, it's hard to find. You definitely can't buy it new in bookstores, and I couldn't find it used. So it just happened the very day that I just aimlessly wandered into the bookstore. They happened to have a nice, beautiful set waiting for me, and so I had to buy it, which is unfortunate because that means my TBR just increased by 8 volumes, even though I had just decreased it by 5. But, you know, it is what it is. In the meantime, now that I've finished Marmalade Boy and I just gave up on the Rose of Versailles, I decided my next manga was going to be 僕だけがいない街 by Sanbei Kei. So this was translated into English as Erased by Kei Sanbei. And this is a series. It has 8 books in it. So this is the entire series. It has 8 books in it. It was published in between 2012 and 2016. I came to Japan in 2015, so it was definitely on the top of like new releases when I was there, which is why I have 2 volumes purchased brand new, still in the plastic wrapping, as you can see. But I actually have read the first 3 volumes of this before. I read it a few years ago. Actually probably around 2015 time is about when I started reading it. But I put it down because I was really struggling with reading it. I struggled with the rhythm of the dialogue. The author writes in a very strange rhythm when it comes to Japanese. And he also uses a lot of words and a lot of like terminology, not like terminology, but like turns of phrase that I've never ever like come across yet, like stumbled upon or anything in any other reading I've done. It's definitely a very strange style of Japanese, and I just really struggled getting through with it. So I did put it down, and at that time I wasn't really reading much. I was struggling to read because I just came to Japan and my focus wasn't to read, it was to go out, hang out, meet people, explore, and do new things, and also get used to like having a new job in a new not in a new language, but in a language I've never spoken, 24 hours a day basically. So I did put this down, but I've always wanted to get back to it, but it's definitely never been a priority for me. But at the beginning of this year, I rearranged my shelves to put a few series like this at the front of my shelf, so I could see them and say, okay, this year I'm actually going to tackle these. And so I think this is going to be one of those series that if I read like the first 3 volumes again and I'm still not getting into it, I'll probably just give it up and sell these. But I do want to try it because it's an interesting concept. So what it is basically like a mystery manga series. I don't need to hold up all 8. I can just hold up 1 so you can see the cover. But it's basically like a mystery, suspense, horror kind of manga. Basically what it is our main character has this ability to sort of not so much jump back in time, but like revisit an incident right before it's going to happen. So what happens is he'll be in a situation, his senses get triggered, and he revisits those moments, and he's supposed to look for clues in those moments to help prevent a situation. So the very first scene, the very first incident at the beginning of this manga is a child is crossing the street, and there's a truck going by, and he senses that something's gonna go wrong, and so it's up to him to come up with the clues and figure out that basically what's gonna happen is that kid is supposed to like basically die in a traffic accident, and so he's able to prevent it by reliving scenes from his past. And the thing is that he actually ends up getting hit by the car instead of the child, and when he's in the hospital, he finds himself revisiting his past. And he's revisiting his past in where basically he struggles to remember his past, but there's certain things that sort of come back over and over again. And basically what it is that when he was a child, there was a series of kidnapping murder incidents, or children were getting kidnapped and then they were being murdered, and a lot of them were actually his classmates. And there was the suspect was captured, and the suspect was someone that our main character was very good friends with, a college student that our main character was very good friends with. But the thing is, it turns out that he never really believed that college student was guilty. He thinks he was very much innocent, and it turns out that he might actually have been, especially when our protagonist is walking around with his mother, and his senses get triggered again, and he can't figure it out why, but his mother was able to stop it, and what she was able to stop was once again a potential kidnapping. And the thing is that later that night, his mother is murdered by this potential assailant, and our protagonist, in the extreme emotion of wanting to save his mother, actually gets sent back to time when he was a child. So the story follows that he's basically going to try and figure out who the kidnapper was, hopefully not only save his mother, but also maybe save his classmates from the horrible damage that they had to go through. So it sounds very interesting, and like the plot, I was enjoying the plot when I read it. It's just I got bogged down by the Japanese. So yeah, it's something that I'm looking forward to revisiting again. And now that I've read the first volume, I haven't started volume 2 yet, but now that I've read the first volume and gotten back into the rhythm of things, I think it'll be a lot easier to continue. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Finished one series, gave up on another series, bought a new series, started a new series. So like that's normal. That feels about right for where I should be. At least I'm reading. That's the important thing. At least I'm reading, and I'm enjoying my time reading. So anyway, hope you enjoyed today's first attempt at doing a manga only type video. Seems the sound in the background was okay, so I'm very happy about that. I think I hit a perfect little lull in the construction work, which makes sense because it's lunchtime. But yeah, once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!